Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew. Now what I have for you today are 10 stealth survival skills, things to avoid detection out in the field, ways to gather food and resources and provide for our most basic needs, as well as signal for rescue, all while trying to remain stealthy. Stand by. Now, our first task is going to be personal camouflage. It's one of the first steps in immediate action, applying personal camouflage and attempting to blend into the environment to avoid detection. What we're going to do is turn that watch around so we don't reflect the sun's rays, take off any jewelry or anything that makes noise, and begin to blend into our environment. We're going to grab our cami sticks. We have a light cami and then a dark cami, and we're going to veg up. We're going to take all of that light green, put it in our hands just like the expert infantryman's badge training, and smother it all over our face till we look like the Jolly Green Giant. And then we're going to take out that brown cami and we're going to go over the highlighted portions of our face that stand out, such as our brow, cheekbones, nose, jaw, and ears. What we're doing is trying to attempt to flatten the surface of our face or give off the optical illusion that it is flat, decreasing the likelihood that somebody's going to notice us out in the wild. Next, what we're going to do is make something called a Yeti. And for this Yeti, we're going to need a tall, flexible sapling. We're going to take out our knife, cut it away from the forest floor. Now you'll notice that a fresh cut stands out to a tracker. What we can do is take a little bit of mud from the area and then cover the fresh cut that's still in the ground to make it appear older than it actually is to fool pursuers. Now that we have our sapling, we should have some 550 cord or some paracord or any type of cordage in our kit that we can use to construct the lattice work or the net of our Yeti that's going to hold all of our material together. We take out that 550 and we just need about 6 feet or so, cut both ends off, and then gut that 550 because we're going to use the guts to actually construct the net of our Yeti. That net is very simple. All we do is take that sapling, fold it together. We're going to tie the two ends together and then begin taking the guts of our 550 cord and simply weave a net around that loop that we've created. It doesn't matter how we do it exactly. We just need to have some sort of lattice work in there that we can use to actually construct a net. That way we can weave in vegetation to give us an improvisational camouflage device that we can wear or put over a pack or our clothing and use to avoid detection in the area. With our net done, now all we need to do is collect vegetation from around the area. We want to pull small branches or shrubs, greenery from around the area from multiple sources. That way we don't leave a large sign of our presence that may be more noticeable. In this case, we have just smaller signatures from broken branches or things that we've collected. We weave in that vegetation into our net or our lattice work. Once it's complete, we can take that 550 cord sheath that we gutted and use that as a strap tying to the top and the bottom of the Yeti. Then all we have to do is string it on and we're good to go. Now for our next task, we're going to need the drone up in the air to get some aerial footage because we're going to be signaling from the ground to the air for search and rescue. What we're going to do is move into our signaling site, which is this open area where we have enough sun to use our signaling mirror. We've got our Yeti with us, and what we're going to do is lay down flat because we're using an alternate prone technique with our signaling mirror to flash and alert search and rescue of our presence. We're going to take that Yeti and place it up over top of our torso. Our pants and our boots blend into the area, however, our shirt does not. And so we can use that Yeti to our advantage to conceal ourselves from the air and from any other sources that may be trying to observe our position. When we're in that prone position on our back, we're going to dig out our mirror and then reflect the sun's rays off of our mirror up into the sky to alert search and rescue aircraft, and we can confirm with the drone footage that we are signaling for rescue. Our next task, we're going to make a couple of different passive fishing traps that are somewhat concealed that we can use to fish passively while we are back at the hide site. We're going to use our quick deploy ridgeline for this first concealed trot line trap. There are already Prusix on there with bank line, and we can add a few more Prusix if we need to. And then from there, we can take leaders out of our fishing kit and attach the leaders with the hooks onto those Prusix. That way we have a trot line that is collapsible that we can take to the water's edge and deploy and then rapidly pick up and put back in our kit. With our trot line complete, now all we need is bait for our hooks, and then an anchor. We can take a rock from the shore and tie it to one end of our trot line to act as the anchor. Move to the shore, and we have this down log that we can use as a near side anchor point. Normally we take a stake, drive it into the ground underneath the water on the near side as our near side anchor point, but there's a lot of rocks right here. It's not going to take a stake. But once we have that complete, we walk out our trot line until it's fully extended, spread out the hooks so the hooks don't become entangled as we launch our trot line. Spoiler alert, they become entangled as we launch our trot line. Once we're good to go, everything is set up, we launch the trot line into the water, and we come back routinely to check this. We can notice, because we have an anchor point up out of the water, if there's activity on the line. If there is activity, we reel that in, gather our fish, and we have survival food. Good to go. The other passive fishing trap we have at our disposal is something I like to call a pole reel. All we're going to do is create a hobo reel that can sit on a pole, and we can observe it from a hidden position. What we're going to use is an expended flare can. This is the actual can that the flare travels in, along with our fishing tackle or a mini fishing kit. What we're going to do is simply create a hobo reel. We take out the line just like we would any hobo reel, and we can use a plastic bottle or a can for this trap as well. But we just wrap the line around the top of our hobo reel, and then add our hook, add our bobber, and then add our bait. We're going to need a stick from the surrounding area, a good strong stick, and we're going to carve a spear or a spade end on one end. It's actually going to sit in the ground and function as our pole. Once we're satisfied with our pole reel trap, we're going to move out to an area that's out of eye shot from the casual observer, preferably around a bend, near the water, as low to the water as possible. We're going to find a good spot where we can actually set up and take our stick and drive it into the ground. We found a good spot right here, further out from the shore than where we set our trot line, that will actually take this stake. Once we get that stake firm and in the ground, we can take our hobo reel from this flare can, remove the cap at the bottom, and then place the hobo reel over top, ensuring that it rotates freely as if a fish had taken the bait, swallowed the hook, and is now drawing the line out from our hobo reel. Once we're satisfied with that, we just pick up our hobo reel, get ready, and cast the hobo reel and that line and the hook with the bait in the position that we want out in the water, and then simply reel in a little bit of that line to make sure the line is taut. Put the hobo reel right on top of the pole, and then we can observe this trap safely from a hidden position back in the wood line. Once we notice any activity on the line, we come out, grab a hobo reel, set the hook, and then drag the fish in. Once we have the fish in, we obviously have food for survival, and we're good to go. We can use the military strobe for a signaling device, especially in a stealth or evasion scenario, by using the extension feature on the strobe. The strobe has several different functions. It has an IR cover and then an omnidirectional white light with the cover removed. But by extending the body of the strobe itself, there is a blue filter that falls over top of the omnidirectional light within the housing of the strobe, making this a directional strobe in that we can face it the direction rescue is most likely to come, have that blue light flashing, they will see it, draw them into our location, and we're rescued. In a stealth survival situation, especially moving through ground and having constant contact with the ground, we need to be aware of ground spoor or the tracks we leave behind. Pursuers will follow these tracks, and from our footprints, they can learn a lot about us, our size, our weight, what direction we're obviously traveling. One way we can fool our pursuers is by taking out an extra pair of socks from our kit and putting those socks on over our boots. What this does is soften the imprint we leave behind in soft soil like on this hillside. And what that does is basically paints a footprint picture that indicates that that track may be older than it actually is to a pursuer or to a tracker, giving us a little bit of a head start and fooling the pursuer into thinking that we are actually further ahead than we really are. For our next task, we're going to make an improvised hammock out of our poncho and some tubular nylon webbing that we have as part of our mountaineering kit. With this kit, we can make a shelter to get up off the ground, protect ourselves, protect our clothing, thermoregulate, and just get a good night's sleep. You may be saying to yourself, Self, we probably don't want to have an elevated shelter in a stealth survival situation, and that's true, but we may need to actually get up off the ground to help protect ourselves and get a good night's sleep in a survival situation, and we can take advantage of terrain and the terrain features around the area to help conceal ourselves and level the bubbles, so to speak, to avoid detection, and remain hidden while still getting that good night's sleep with an elevated shelter. All we do with our kit is find our 2 diagonal corners of our poncho, and then taking our tubular nylon webbing, we're going to wrap around, starting with the middle of the actual webbing itself, wrapping around the corners of our poncho until we get to the end, folding it over, creating a loop. We want to leave about 2 fingers width of room. We're going to wrap back and then feed the nylon webbing through the loop twice to create our anchor point that we're going to use for attachment. Once we have one side of our poncho attachment point, that diagonal corner complete with our nylon webbing, we just go to the opposite corner and do the same thing. We should end up with 2 similar looking attachment points with enough excess tubular webbing to use to actually hang from a tree. To hang this from a tree, we just find our first anchor point or our first tree, and we'll begin wrapping our tubular nylon opposite directions around that tree, starting from bottom to top, to create a tensionless anchor point with our hammock. We just tie it off, move to our next anchor point across from our first anchor point, and then tie that up the same way. Apply a little bit of body weight. It's going to stretch out a little bit, but then we can readjust, retie, and make it a little bit tighter. Once we're satisfied with that, all we have to do is sit in our hammock, lay down, and then fold up the sides around us to provide a little blanket and stay warm. Have a good night's sleep. You'll notice that we've taken advantage of the military crest. We're below the military crest or the top of the hill, not silhouetting ourselves, but we can also turn this shelter into a hooch and get underneath by simply folding over or reversing the poncho hood side out, anchoring out the 2 excess points, and then getting underneath, staying dry. Now for our next task, we're going to do the commando coil because we don't need to be walking around in the woods with just a giant rat's nest of tubular webbing. So first things first, back at the house, when you get the webbing, find and identify the middle portion. Once we find our middle portion back out in the field, all we have to do is take 2 fingers and work our way down to the 2 ends of the nylon webbing, ensuring that they're going to lay flat and they're not twisted or wrapped around each other or themselves. Once you get to the 2 ends, all we have to do is take the 2 ends and create a simple overhand knot, and now that tubular nylon webbing is secured. All we have to do from there is act as if we are going to create another overhand knot on that same end where we tied the 2 ends together. But instead of pulling the nylon webbing all the way through, we're just going to force a loop through, secure the loop with our fingers, and then hold it in place, reach through again, forcing that loop through from the excess cordage or nylon webbing, and then reach through again and repeat this process, creating a coil. The coil will not come undone as long as we continue to work the material. Once we get toward the end and we have a little bit of slack left, which should be the exact middle of our tubular nylon webbing, is pull that excess through the final loop that we can fit into a carabiner that will not come undone. We work to the opposite end, get a little bit of slack, fit the carabiner through that, and we are complete. In any survival scenario, we may be away from our main pack, our rucksack, or our salt bag, and only have the items on us necessary to survive. And those items can range from clothing to cordage, different ropes or materials, and even a poncho. And we may need to develop ways to carry this in the field to remain stealthy, move quickly, and cover ground and distance over time, but have a way to obviously pack these materials and then pack them safely, waterproof them, and be able to retrieve them at the end of the day to set up camp. One of the ways we can do this is by simply creating what's called a horseshoe pack. We take our poncho, lay it out lengthwise in half, put our material in the middle, roll it up, and then at the 2 ends we twist those ends with some excess 550 cord, we tie them off. Once we have both ends tied off, we bring the horseshoe pack frame together at the ends, tie the ends together, we shoulder the pack, get up, move out, and we're good to go. Alright guys, I hope you liked this video, a very down and dirty video. 10 stealth survival skills that we can use out in the field. If you did like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate your feedback. I want to thank you guys for everything you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.